getting ready for the Venice Biennale show, you know, you have to come up with the whole theme long beforehand and then submit it. I went there and we chose the space. And then I had to submit to the board of directors of the museum what my ideas for a show were and how many paintings there were going to be, what the theme was going to be, what the colors were going to be. And this is before I'd even made one painting. But once I was there, as I was looking at the two rooms of this 14th century building, it all sort of came to me. And I wanted to delve into the T.S. Eliot's poem, Four Quartets, again. And this time I chose three different passages from the poem. One was, only through time, time is conquered. And that was the biggest painting, 7 feet by 9 feet, same as this. And then I did 8 paintings titled Reach into the Silence. And it was, all the colors were derived from the city and the architecture and the different times of the year. And then there was a second room I did called Neither Flesh Nor Fleshless. And as I was working on those paintings, I started doing these very thin veils that I was thinking about Renaissance art, and like for instance the Mona Lisa, she has this veil on her head. You can barely see it, but it's a very thin black line. And it's so beautiful, and there's a lot of that in the Renaissance work. So I started playing around with that idea with that series, and as I was using the overlapping and to allow to see through different moments, I thought, this is almost like a new form of cubism, because I was being able to see through the layers of time. I'm using this real thin, small brush now, and I'm getting these real crisp areas here. I realized that, I thought, my God, this is like a new idea of cubism. And cubism being that, you know, you can see multiple perspectives all at the same time. But I was thinking, well, what if I could see multiple layers of time simultaneously? So that was in April. I was in Venice for the opening, and then in June I went back to Paris because I had an opening in Paris. And this guy comes running up to me, and he's out of breath, and he's small and is disheveled, and it's raining outside, and he's soaking wet. And he comes running in, and comes running up to me, and he said, "Hi, my name's David." It was English accent. I said, "Hi, David, how are you?" He goes, I'm good, David Ash." He said, I've come to meet you." I said, "You've come to meet me?" "Yes, I've come from England to meet you." And I said, "Well, why would you do that?" And he said, "A friend of mine whose father was a very famous artist said that I needed to come here to see you. So I got on the train." "What do you do, David?" And he said, "I'm a quantum physicist." "Okay." And he said, "And I'm writing a book. And what I'm writing about is what you're painting." He said, "Because what you're painting is quantum physics. You're playing with time and space in a way that I haven't seen." He introduced me to his publisher. And then they asked if I would provide 12 images for his book. So I said, if I can read the book, I will provide 12 images. So I read it, and it's called What Einstein Got Right. I completely understood where he was coming from about quantum physics and different theories and what my paintings are doing, and he was absolutely right. So with that in mind, that kind of gave me the license to start pushing this idea further. And I thought, you know, well, why not play with the idea of bridging this gap between science? So this is a catalog for the Venice show, and it was quite a project to put this all together. It's a photograph that a friend of mine did, Sonia Huckabee. But the series I'm talking about, Neither Flesh Nor Fleshless, is this series here. And I really enjoyed making these, and these were all small, I think 42 by 40 inches. They weren't that big, but it's more Caravaggio influences. And so then once this show was done, I really wanted to sort of delve back into this idea and push it further. And then this is this big painting that I did as 7 feet by 9 feet. And this is about a third the way through, half the way through in the finished painting. And then Tony Canella and I took these colors and mapped them all out in terms of chords. And like for instance, this cobalt blue here, the third layer, is a B, D sharp, E, F sharp, C sharp. So that's the chord for this color that I hear in my head. And so then we did a whole sound piece. And it was a 20-minute 3-piece sonata that was performed live. It was really quite beautiful. And here's the documentation of the big painting starting. And so you can see the process. It took me 6 months to work on this painting. And this is a museum where the exhibition was, the Bovolo. Beautiful place. This is the beginning stages of another still point painting that I'm doing. And the last phrase of the poem, 4 quartets, it says, "And the fire and the rose are one." So I think it was about 10 months ago, I started this series of these paintings with that title. And I had in mind I wanted to do 12 of them. The idea of the fire and the rose becoming one, it's like you can't have one without the other, and you can't have life without death, and death without life. And it's a beautiful part ending to that poem. So I thought I would explore. So this is the 4th painting I'm working on. And you can see how they begin. They're very raw. And just literally about my movement of my hand like this. And then as the layers build up, I'll go back in and do washes and push them back further. And then the brushes get smaller and smaller until we have these fine lines that are almost protruding out from the surface. This one is the first one I did of "And the fire and the rose are one." Again, my initial thought was I'm going to do 12 of them. They're all going to be 7 feet tall, 6 feet wide. And the 12 represents this transition between when you have a rose or a group of roses or a garden, and then it's been destroyed by the fire, been consumed. So there's this progression that I'm interested in portraying. And I started this about a year ago. And it's very, sad, these fires that have been happening in LA. This was first, this is the second one I did. And this one, the greens are still in here. And I'm not sure this one is finished yet. I keep coming in here and looking at it almost every day. And I'll do a little brush stroke. And then I'll walk away and I'll come back the next day and see what it looks like. So I have the luxury of doing that because I have different spaces that I can migrate to. So this is the second one, that's the third one. And this one I'm very happy with how it turned out. And it's always about this, finding this perfect balance between chaos and order. They're very complicated, but they're very simple at the same time. And the poem by T.S. Eliot, 4 quartets, it's such an amazing work of art in itself, and I've been reading it for 30 plus years, and I keep going back to it, and it keeps feeding me information and inspiration, and this series is certainly one of them now. We'll see where it goes after this, I don't know. Like the other paintings in there with that sort of new sense of cubism. I can see where they're coming out of this, because what if this line actually has an objectivity to it instead of it just being the subject of a line. So suddenly now you have volume and space being used in a different way, which is what's happening in these other paintings in the studios. So I'm just along for the ride, quite frankly, and see where it all takes me to. I'm inspired every day. Tell you that much, which is a beautiful thing for me. So.